The lesson.
Oh, yeah.
You know, when I look at comedy, my favorite comedians are the ones who, you know, when they deal with heckling, they just burn the front row.
Yeah.
You know, or they're not even getting heckled and they just tee off on the front row.
Yes.
You know, the comedians were like, I'll watch a comedy and I just think within the first 5 minutes, man, I'm going to go see this dude one day. I ain't getting in the first 5 rows. Right? I'm going to stay back. I like, and I kind of compare it to rap and hip hop in that, you know, the comedian will have their routine. That's like the rapper's rehearsed song, track, verse. And then my favorite rappers are the ones that can do the good songs, but can also freestyle off the top, improv.
Yeah.
And same with my comedy. It's like I love, you know, dudes with that good content, but the guys who can improv, whether it's off, you know, crowd reaction or heckling, that to me is kind of like the freestyle element of comedy.
Yeah.
Now, when I look at those two, you know, parallels, that's what I'm into. Now, I understand that you also have, you know, some sort of relationships with the Australian hip hop community, like Greeley, for example. And you're actually a fan of the culture and the whole thing.
Yeah, I love it. Like, Oz hip hop is something that I grew up with since, well, not grew up, I suppose I started listening to it at 18. My first exposure to it was people playing Don't Fuck With Kerser during school assembly as a joke. And it was just this little joke. You'd skip the song on your phone to right before the chorus, and then it'd be a real silent moment. You hit play and be silenced, and don't fuck with Kerser. Pause. And that was so funny. Teachers hated it, so we just started doing that. And I never really listened to the song at all. It was just this thing to mess with the teachers. But then I listened to the song, and I was like, this is actually really good. And then I listened to like Kerser is the sickest when he was rapping in the car park, because someone was like, oh, check out this guy in a polo shirt rapping in the car park. And I was like, oh, this will be ridiculous. And then I listened to it thinking I was going to laugh at it, but I was like, nah, this is great. This is really good. And then I suppose from there, from getting a little bit into Kerser, I started finding out more other rappers, which of this industry that I had no idea existed. I started getting into Forte, who's like one of my favorites now, and from there I got into Complete and Omac and listened to their early mixtapes, and then Man Is Ill, Greeley, and I just got completely lost in this culture that I had no idea existed, and it was really great. Just, you know, even people like Taunts as well, who's from Melbourne, I believe, just hearing Taunts talk about places and streets that I've walked. Was so cool to me, because I liked American rap, but it was missing that, I suppose, personal element that I could connect to. That's just so there in Australia, especially now that I've been outside of Victoria. I can listen to rappers from Perth and rappers from Adelaide. I'll be like, oh, I've been there. I kind of understand that. It's like, what's better than hearing a suburb that you know get shout out on a track, and people talking about stuff that you've lived and you've experienced. And I love Oz rap, and I have for years, and I've always been like heavily involved in the culture, and I've it's really cool now to call these people that I was just freaking out over, listening to mixtapes and stuff, getting whatever I could, my hands on whatever I could, and now I call most of them personal friends, you know. And then they'll come out to shows, like Forte always comes out and checks out a show when I'm in Sydney. Complete Omac will always come see me when I'm in Perth. And Manners came and saw me tonight. And now Greeley is my opening act. Like, that's so cool. You know, like, who would have thought that would happen? Like, I started listening to Oz rap and all the battles and everything. And yeah, it's really cool to be so heavily involved in something that you love.
And then, so I guess that's where my next question was going, was because, Greeley is one of your opening acts on the entire tour. Yeah. And I mean, to my recollection, this is the first time I've seen an Aussie hip hop artist transition over into the stand-up comedy thing. I guess, first of all, how did, yourself and Greeley meet? And then how did things progress to the point where now he's, on your comedy bill?
Yeah, well, it's funny. Me and Greeley, unofficially met the first time at a Kerser show. I can't remember the venue. It was a small little venue. It was for the Nebulizer tour. And I was there. I got there. I was there by myself because all my friends were too scared to go. So I was like, well, I'm going by myself. I'm not going to miss out. So I was there like front row, and you know, I bumped into Greeley, and I was like, oh man, Greeley, I've seen you. And he was like, hey man, just got on stage, and that was all I saw of him. But then a few years later, when I started getting a bit of a name for myself doing comedy and on stuff online, this is before stand-up, a record label, LMG, reached out. I can't even remember how. And then somehow we ended up just working with this record label based out in the Frankston area. And Greeley happened to, you know, work there and live in Melbourne and Frankston at the time. And we just like really connected, got on well. And LMG is kind of where I met all the rappers. That's how I met Forte. That's how I met Kerser. That's how I met Complete and Manners and everyone through that record label that I was kind of working for, kind of just hanging out because it was cool and I loved it. And yeah, me and Greeley just made really close friends. And I was always at his house, probably getting contact highs, pretending that I was still sober. But yeah, it just a weird series of coincidences really that kind of brought it together. And then really about 18 months ago, Greeley was telling me that he was thinking about starting stand-up. And I was like, sick, yeah? Because Greeley always has stories. I've known him for 5 years.
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever heard the same story twice. So I was like, dude, you're interesting before you're funny, which is like, if you have a story that's interesting with no jokes in it, if you can put jokes in that, it's hilarious and memorable. Because not only do people laugh, they also go, man, that's crazy that happened. And Greeley was perfect for that. So I was doing a show in Hobart, and I said, well, if you want to do it. And he did his first ever stand-up gig opening for me about 18 months ago, and he did really well because he had those stories that were interesting before they were funny, and then he made them funny, and now 18 months later, he's been like plugging away, performing every week down in Tassie and just trying to get as many gigs and as much stage time as he can. And I thought, I love giving opportunities to newer comics because that's something that I would have loved to have done. I would love to have toured with a support act of someone who's bigger than me, who's more experienced, but that wasn't ever available to me, and that opportunity doesn't exist really in Australian comedy much at all. So I thought, well, someone's got to do it. So I've had other comedians when they first started out. I've had Luke Kidgel twice in a row when he was first starting out, and now he's kind of blossomed into his own thing, and we have a radio show together. And I thought, well, I would bring Greeley on for this tour. And it was great. I saw his first ever gig, and now I'm seeing him after 18 months of hard work, and he's just smashing at my shows, and he's great, and he's got a real unique perspective coming from the pseudo crime background, just being around that different culture of lower socioeconomic status people and being involved in Oz hip hop and rap. It's such a different life to anything that I've lived and anything that my audience will have lived as well generally. And it's great. He's doing really well, and it's cool to see how much he's improved and how much even just on this tour he's getting better and better. So it's really cool.
Yeah, shout outs to Greeley, man. He's a king. And he he's got THC TV.
Yeah.
And I think he mentioned, I haven't seen it, but I think he mentioned that you actually have an episode on there.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, so I've I really struggled to not do something that I'm interested in. So I was interested in rap for years, and then just as a little hobby, I just started writing bars here and there, and then I was like, why don't I try making beats? And then I started making beats, and I was like, well, why don't I try recording something? And I recorded a few funny tracks for just for my comedy, just a bunch of lad rap parodies. I did Lads in Frankston instead of in Paris. I did Straight Out of Frankston instead of Straight Out of Compton. I did a whole bunch of other things. Kanga instead of Panda at the time when that track was blowing up, and they started going really well. They were all getting like millions of views, and I put effort into not just making them funny, but the craft of of rap because I loved it so much, and I was like, oh, I can kind of rap. So I thought, well, why don't I try and make something a bit more serious? And anyway, I ended up putting out a mixtape called Not Very Good Yet under a pseudonym, Christopher Ruse, and I made all the beats myself, and people ended up really liking it, which was cool. And I've got another one coming out after this tour, my second one, and I did a THC TV. So it's not something that I would say that I'm taking super seriously as a career type thing. It's just a hobby, and I find it fun, and I'm not too stressed if it's good or if it's bad. I just really enjoy creating it, making beats, and doing a bit of rap, and we'll see what happens, you know.
The lesson. 927. Oh yeah.